Thank you everyone for joining us today. Hope you are feeling well on this Wednesday. We're very lucky to have Burgess from Float, the cash flow forecasting solution. And I invited him along today, and we kind of had a discussion on what topic would be useful for us to discuss. And Dylan suggested talking about uncertainty. Talking about how we deal with uncertainty and how we help our clients deal with uncertainty during these quite challenging times. So something that I hadn't actually thought about, but can recognize that probably that's a lot of what we are navigating during these times. So it looks like a lot of you actually know Dylan, so I'll hand over to Dylan and let you run with it.
Thank you. I think, the only person I've met is Carla. So hi, Carla. Nice to kind of connect. But I think everybody else hopefully knows me because I know you. And so for obviously just an interesting topic around uncertainty, because I think in my discussions with book advisors like bookkeepers and accountants, the big thing that's coming up is uncertainty, and not only for clients but also for themselves and their practice. And so I thought it was just an interesting can of worms to potentially open up, as well as have an opportunity to kind of check in with everybody as well, because that's obviously why Heather's done such an amazing job of creating this space for it to be a check-in. And I think uncertainty is quite a scary thing. I know in business, when I've dealt with this previously, it wasn't anything like, if I look at previous work experiences, whenever we kind of went through challenging times, it wasn't ever anything major, but it was just we didn't know what was going to happen. And the not knowing, in our heads, we write these narratives, and that can cause us to spiral a little bit. So I think it's an important one to kind of get into. With clients, I think it's a really interesting one in terms of talking through that. There seems to be two schools of thought with clients, and I want to get into this a little bit later on, but there seems to be two schools of thought with the clients. It's the ostriches, who just like to put their head in the sand and not think about it. And then there's the cost cutters that are just like, oh no, we're just going to cut everything. And that's bookkeeping, accounting, and you're talking to the bookkeeper or you're talking to the accountant, they're like, no, we're going to cut all the costs. And so that becomes the other school of thought, and that's also a challenging conversation. But I think before we get into the whole professional working space and what uncertainty looks like there, and getting into those two kind of schools of thought that I've come across from my experiences over the last 3 months, as well as potential clients that you've come across, which I'll be interested to explore, is just understanding how everyone's doing with the uncertainty in their own practice, because everybody here is obviously running or a part of a business themselves. And we're all part of this crazy world called COVID-19, where we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. I think we've all stopped planning 6 months in advance and now plan 6 days in advance at maximum. So that can have a massive impact on everybody, and I'm really, really cognizant of that. So I want to first open up to how everybody is coping with that, what have been the key sort of elements of uncertainty that have come up potentially for yourselves, and how are you navigating that from a personal perspective. So if anyone wants to volunteer, otherwise I'll just ask someone to sort of start sharing.
I do wonder that Carla's jumping in. I'm jumping in before. I do wonder whether accountants having a predisposition to being typically risk-averse people have, this is actually a bigger issue for the accounting and bookkeeping personality than maybe other professions. Maybe other professions are more adaptable to this, and I just throw that out there. In my world, 2 + 2 = 4, and all of a sudden 2 + 2 doesn't necessarily equal 4, and that's a sort of a sign of you're really in deep when you can't make a decision based on the set of formulas that you're used to, and that can be quite challenging. And also that we can't actually make a lot of decisions, which is kind of what has happened. And we wake up every morning and our decisions a lot of them are taken away from us. And I know that what we went through in the early stage, and this is going to sound quite basic, I went round to the family and said, make a decision about what you're wearing today, because that's actually something that you can decide on today. Like, make a conscious decision so you can actually make a few decisions. And you know, you're right. Planning has just planning what's in advance, like the awards. Like, we've got, I think, Receipt Bank awards coming up. We're planning for them. We've got, we can't even work out where we're going to be, and that has that makes it very challenging in terms of deciding anything and thinking forward and actually looking forward. So, but I'll hand to Carla, who's massively jumped in the chat area to share her thoughts.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Helen's
I was so
listening.
enthralled with your answer there that I was like, that's really, really interesting insights. So the question was about how I've dealt with uncertainty or felt either personally or in business. If we're talking about COVID, I think from the outset, the thing that I think that I was lucky that I took with me into COVID was that the mindset of what are the things that you can control and what are the things that you can't. And the things that you can't control, there's no use stressing about it, or, you know, spending time worrying about it, because spending time worrying about it is not actually going to change it if you can't control it. So I think that I'm probably not the typical 1 + 1 = 2 person. I'm 1 + 1 can equal whatever you want it to be. So it doesn't necessarily fit with the industry. I think that also has been a strength going through this and leading my team through it. So the thing that I've probably been able to bring to the table through in my business is being that support person for people in my team, or even people within the industry that isn't the way that they naturally think with the way they approach things. So that doesn't mean to say that I haven't had times of stress or uncertainty. I think though that having those underlying mindsets do help you sort of bring back to the what can I control, what can't I control, and then that idea of making decisions, as Heather said, is that something that I'm not necessarily brilliant at, but it is something, again, that I can always fall back on, is progress over perfection. And that doesn't mean to say that you don't sort of reach perfection and you can't circle back to perfect things, but sitting and doing nothing isn't going to achieve anything. So doing something better that is better than nothing. So I've mentioned that through some of these other chats, but they're the things that I think have worked for me. Yeah, that's my feedback.
Yeah, no, it's actually interesting how it's similar themes that from what Heather said to what you're saying as well. It's around that action piece. It feels like take some sort of action. If you could control what shirt you're putting on, take that control and take an action. And that's where that links to that progress and perfection too. It's like, rather than just trying to, you know what I mean, have the perfect business that in the middle of something crazy, it's like, well, we can't have the perfect holiday or the perfect wedding or the perfect business, but if we can do something, then take that as a win.
I know I've suffered from paralysis over analysis, whatever that saying is, that it's just I sit there and go through, but not in all things. So I think that there's probably some decisions or some areas of either your life or your business that you can move forward with really easily, and other areas that are sort of like a roadblock or a challenge, and that really get you, and you just kind of nutting it out over and over and over and over again. So talking to somebody else is something that works really well to sort of move through that, and breaking it down into those sort of smaller achievable goals and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not sure how this works. Sorry, Heather. Is other people just jump in on this, or do you want me to just go around? Like, Nicole, looks like you're itching to. I was going to say, Nicole, looks like you're itching to jump in, but I just wanted to make sure I didn't want to like go the wrong way around.
This is what I'm secretly saying in the chat area. Okay, you've got to say, Nicole, what day of the week is it? I've not said it in the chat area. I'm just telling you. Time, okay? That's what I secretly told you, okay? So you say, what day of the week is it, Nicole?
Today.
He's got to say it, Nicole. He's got to say it.
Okay, so Nicole, my apologies, but what day of the week is it today?
It's Chimpanzee Day. It's not Cow's Day. I'm sorry about that, but it's Chimpanzee Day. So if you're not hairy monkeys, today's your day.
Amazing. That is how I'm not sure where I'm going to ask where this wisdom comes from.
No, don't.
I was going to say, I don't know if this is a can of worms we want to unpack on this, or we might use up the whole 2 hours.
I just like to know what day it is. And so that's what I have to open with every day. And Heather expects to know what day it is. Yesterday was Bad Poetry Day. So I had some bad poetry for everyone. And don't tell Amar, but I'm not a big planner. I don't like to plan my life too far in advance. I'm more of a go with the flow kind of person, which will no doubt be really upsetting to him because he loves goals and achieving them. And so I guess this hasn't been so bad right now that I didn't have massive goals set, and therefore I've not missed them. So I don't feel bad that, I'm failing, because I'm not. I'm just nailing life right now. And Carla said as well, control what you can control. I can control the color I'm going to wear. It will be red. But I'm also not really good at decisions. So again, it will be red, and that saves on what color should I wear and what shoes will go with that. We just assume it will be red, and then everything will coordinate from there. And I guess Heather also mentioned, bookkeepers and accountants are probably fairly conservative. So in my personal life, I'm not highly geared. I'm not mortgaged up to the eyebrows. So I have assumed that there will be some sort of disaster in life somewhere. And so I've got that security blanket or whatever already in place, assuming my husband could lose his job. They do restructures at his work very regularly, so he has to reapply for his own job. And so, we've just assumed that he might lose his job at one point, and we've got enough in the mortgage that we can keep going for a long time. So I think at my clients, because I don't like hospitality or retail, I guess it's my personal belief that some hospitality places are struggling to make a profit and pay their staff correctly. And so to me, I feel it's safer not to work with those people, because I don't want to generalize or suggest that they're all idiots and they're cheating their staff, but they're all idiots and they're cheating their staff. And so I don't want to work in that area. So for us, it's not been too bad. Our clients, some aren't doing well, some are doing better, some are managing. So I think, we're kind of doing okay. And being in lockdown as someone that's an extroverted introvert, I struggle with people. And so I'm probably living my best life in that I don't have to see anyone. It's kind of good. It's just this, and this is quite manageable.
I was going to say the virtual, I choose when to be an extrovert, kind of, as opposed to being forced into it.
Yeah, and you can always leave this when you had enough. You pick up your phone.
No, you all have to stay. Yeah, and I think Heather raised a really good point on that too, just around surviving at the moment is like such an achievement in and of itself. You know what I mean? Like, if job loss is challenging, but you know what I mean? If you got your job and like you've got a plan in place, if even, you know what I mean? Like you said, if the worst case scenario happens, then that's a pretty good place to be in. So for someone that doesn't plan, Nicole, I'm pretty impressed with how much planning and foresight you've done around how much is in the mortgage to make sure that you've got enough, and you've planned for job losses and which clients and industries you want to be working with too. That's a lot of planning for someone that doesn't like planning.
Maybe it's just perhaps previous shit decisions have brought me to slightly better decisions. And I don't want to be homeless.
Yeah, it's a good shout.
On the flip side, I do live in a flat rather than a house because I couldn't bring myself to take a big mortgage. So swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, makes sense. Amar, did you have something you wanted to jump in with? I saw you come off mute there, subtly in the background.
Yeah, I think for me, it was just having the plan in place for various scenarios. So where for my clients, we would have set budgets that we'd be tracking to when something like COVID-19 happens, and that, obviously throws everything out the window. It's just sitting down with the client and saying, okay, that's fine, let's recut the budget. Let's actually define how it's going to look like with what our expectation is. Then if we have a 30% drop, 50%
Your
drop,
audio's
70%.
funny, Amar.
Oh, okay. So,
It's like the bad reception.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, so much better. Thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
Not Bluetooth.
Thank you. Now I got a phone call, and then it just screws up my headset. So it's a case of sitting down with the clients and then just defining what each scenario would look like if we had a 30% drop in income, 50%, 70%. It just gives them that confidence that it doesn't mean all hell's going to break loose, we're going to have to shut down the business, you're going to lose the house. It just gives them that sort of comfort that we do have a plan. If shit hits the fan, we just go to this scenario and go with that. And then there's no point in tracking against the budget we set pre-COVID. And then each month we sit down and we say, yeah, you're down again. Yeah, you're down again. Just recut the budget. So I found when we sit down with clients and actually go through the numbers, they feel like there is a sense of control, that we have a plan, that, it doesn't mean the end. I think it's the fear of the unknown that really scares clients. So just having a plan in place just gives them that confidence that, while there's a lot of uncertainty, we can just pull out the right plan if that situation happens.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can see the difference in approach with Nicole and Amar. It's an interesting point. Is anybody else and I'm interested too, Amar, did you do the same thing for your own business as well and put those plans in place for yourself? Or is it really been jumping in straight for
my business? I have a budget and forecast in place for my business, and with everything that's happened with COVID, my business didn't retract. It actually grew. So I haven't been busier. So I just stayed with my existing budgets and forecasts anyway, which were probably more aggressive anyway. So it just meant that COVID-19 with the extra workload just made it easier to meet the budgets and targets. That's
perfect. Well, just killing it, mate.
I wouldn't say that. It's just always planning. So I just like to put things on paper.
Does anyone else do the similar approach of just planning for everything for clients? Carla's just absolutely not.
Certain clients that are paying for that particular package that includes it. So we offered it and we got a lot of uptake, and clients want it. They want to look at their budget with me every month and do forecasts, and they're wanting strategy. And I've been very challenged this year to remember how management accounting from uni. And it's the demand is definitely there. So we've just moved forward with the of that.
Was that something you had in place before, Electra, or as a result of COVID that you've seen that uptake now more so?
It was loose. It was once or twice a year kind of reviews, but now it's monthly. I just made it mandatory across our firm. Any business that we work with has to have a monthly review with us so that we can keep our finger on the pulse of their business and have better outcomes. no matter what happens in future, and they loved it. And yeah, so that's what we're doing now. Including hospitality is booming where I am. That's so funny you say that, Nicole, because in the town that I'm in, yeah, most of the businesses, Agnes Water, Central Queensland, they're all cash, don't pay people properly, they're bad. But we're digitally transforming them one by one because they're booming. We've got so many tourists here, Brisbane, Sunshine Coast. Like our clients who were dead a few months ago, dead in the water, closing up businesses, and now can't get staff. Their revenue's doubled each month. It's mental. And I'm not used to hospitality, so I'm learning very quickly hospitality. And they're really happy about it because they can see the benefits now of doing things correctly above board if you manage cash flow and budgets monthly. So that's been really nice that we've been able to make that change in an industry that's typically not good.
Yeah, I'm interested to touch base on this one, and this is really, and I think, yeah, exactly like you said, Heather, like this is amazing being able to use a challenging situation to not only like to mutual benefit, you know what I mean? Your clients are getting a lot more from it, but you're also getting a lot more from it from your own practice as well, which is just phenomenal. I'm curious though, a challenge that I've seen a lot of advisors come up against at the moment is the need for these higher value services, like this more strategic thinking, the more strategic planning, exactly like what both you and Amar are mentioning, but the inability to pay because like you mentioned, like 3 months ago, they were dead in the water, closing up shop. How can you do that strategic, like what strategies did you have in place to do that strategic planning when your clients were at a place where they potentially weren't able to pay?
I think it was a kind of a do or die. I don't know, it sounds rough, but I kind of say, well, you need to invest at this point. Your business has potential. So maybe it's time to make a real investment in what we can do for you. And yeah, so many clients, their fees doubled, annual fees doubled. They were quite happy for us to do this extra work. But we also took over bookkeeping as well, so that could be done right.
I do find clients, I totally agree with Electra, clients that did go backwards significantly. They saw the importance of doing that planning, of going through, and a lot of them went back to the drawing board, redefined their businesses, re-documented their business plans. So we worked with them to do that as well, and defining all the key metrics that we now need to track to with the updated business plans and goals. And so if anything, they needed our services more so than the clients that either their business weren't impacted or actually grew slightly.
I don't think what we're doing is as sophisticated as you might be, Amar, which means if I can do it, I think any of us can, because I'm a tax person. I just have to remember how to do it. But yeah, but you get better at it. Yeah.
I think it's really fascinating. I'd be interested to know anyone that's thought about doing something like what Electra's doing on the call that isn't sure, because it sounds like there is a few people on the call that are doing that more strategic planning with clients. And I know from my conversations, that's really refreshing because a lot of people, bookkeepers particularly that I'm speaking to, are like, I'm just seeing it as a cost right now and I'm just getting cut. So how can you change that conversation to make sure that it is a really positive, like the experience that, you know what I mean, you are having a lecture and a month. So like, you know what I mean? I don't want to say that anyone's struggling or anything like that, but I'm just curious, is anyone wanting to do something like this on the call that hasn't had a chance to necessarily, that wants to talk through sort of the potential challenges or roadblocks that they're coming up against, because it might be good to talk through as a group. May not be the case, but I just thought it'd be interesting to sort of see. I'll
chime in. I do it to some degree, and I think this is probably, it's highlighted that there's so many different ways to package and service and provide this. There's different modelling out there. One of the things I was going to ask Amar and Electra is, by the way that they've sort of structured it, where did you get your sort of basis from? I know, Electra, you've spoken before about some of your sort of partnerships you've got and how to deliver that, but something that we do, but not for all our clients, and it's kind of been quite a varied and customized service rather than something that we've educated all our clients on. And that's probably where I would see a benefit or an opportunity for us, is to start educating the clients that probably don't even know that we do this service for some of our clients, and sort of making it a bit more broad spectrum. And then I think now would be that opportune time, or probably, even a couple of months ago probably would have been a more opportune time to do that. I guess it's been a bit more of a reactive thing, that if we've got clients that are struggling, they're the ones that probably need it the most. Whereas if our clients are doing fine, we haven't gone ahead and sort of put that in front of them. It's more, but I do see that that's definitely something that we could be doing more of, just because we think that they might not need it, that, without actually showing them the benefits, then we don't really know what they're thinking.
Yeah, so it's a good point. Like, for me personally, I think every client needs it. I don't think we need to overcomplicate it. Maybe they need it at varying extents. Maybe you set a 12-month budget and you don't revise it every quarter. Maybe you don't go as detailed in terms of KPIs, but having the business owners define their goals and sitting down and having targets to track to, just make sure that the business owner isn't just running aimlessly, that there is some thinking, there's some sort of accountability to their methods. So I had the luxury that I started my business 2.5 years ago, so still quite a young business. And so where I was previously, where I was employed and worked for a long time, I worked in traditional accounting practice where, we had 5,000 clients. It was just me and the business owner. And we saw them once a year, and we worked 24/7, and it was just insane. I just didn't enjoy it. So when I started my business, from the get-go, I said, right, every client we meet every month. That's the service offering. There's no ifs or buts. If you don't want to do it, go to another accountant. So, and I didn't do any marketing because I'm just didn't. So it just happened that it was my clients that referred other clients, and so they told them, my accountant meets with me every month. So the leads that came to me, they wanted that, so they came for that service. So that helped in that perspective, where I don't work with a client who doesn't want to meet every month. So I don't give other options. There's no package B and package C. It's just, this is the way we work. If you'd like to work with us, then this is our services, this is our fees. If you don't, that's completely fine. Yeah, so it's probably, I've had the flexibility to do that because I've designed that from the outset.
I'm a bit jealous of you, Amar. I wish I had started my business recently so I could just tell people this is how we roll. But yeah, having been in business for a heck of a long time, getting clients from here to there has been a struggle, when I'd love to see them here and just nailing life. We're just doing small steps to lift and lift and lift to try and get them to the place. I guess we're kind of a little bit opposite to Carla in that we're offering this to our clients. We want to do budgets with them. We want to do cash flow forecasting with them, but they just don't want it. And they won't cooperate. They're like, no, thanks, don't need that. It's all good, we're fine. So I don't know how to trick them into having it in the nicest possible way.
We tricked them into having it by sending them practice ignition proposals, and they didn't read. They just went,
there you go, hot off the press.
oh yeah, I better accept or I'll lose my accountant. So, well, what do you mean I've got to book in every month? And then they did, and they love it because they're like seeing us, and we just, not shooting the breeze, we're showing them their numbers. So like, if you can just get them into one meeting and start telling them a story about their numbers. Yeah. educating, as you say. That's the challenge. You've got to get that opportunity to educate. You've got to get in front of the client.
It's essentially, I think, what you're saying there, Electra, is it's a non-negotiable. And Mars said the same. It's if you want to work with us, this is what we do, and this is how we do it. And if not, then you know what, we're not the right fit.
Some are quarterly, but mostly monthly. And that's it. If they don't want it, then you can see their business. You can tell whether they need it or not. And if they don't want it and they need it, they're not the client you want to work with.
So my clients that meet with me quarterly, they're still paying for monthly. It's because they cancel that monthly. So, I can't this month, I can't, da, 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 da. So we're still paying the same amount. We've agreed to a monthly engagement. So generally then they end up getting back into line. But so we do have a few clients that we don't meet with every month, but it's usually because they come up with an excuse that they just can't make it that month, which is fine. You know, you are going to get those instances.
So one of my questions about that monthly meeting, and I think I've raised this before with Amar, but it's is around, does that then cap your capacity? Because unless you bring somebody in that can do those monthly meetings, rather than it being yourself, if you're the one that's doing it, because it's almost going back to that. It's not you're limited by your time or time billing, but it is that your capacity in the number of clients that you could bring on board could potentially be affected.
Yeah, it does. You're absolutely right. It does cap my capacity. I know probably a few months ago when we had these 4 o'clock calls, we were talking about, I think, goals for FY 2021. And I said mine was hiring like a senior accountant who could help me with running those meetings. So that was my solution, is trying to find someone who could do that, run those monthly meetings. But at this moment, it's just me. So there is a cap. If I take on more clients, I can't fit more time in the day. So I would need to find someone I either partner up with or hire to take that load off.
And something that just come to my mind then is that as an alternative, not necessarily for you because you've got your packages in place, but if I was looking at doing something similar, maybe that could be counteracted with a package which has the one-to-many kind of event, while you're not maybe talking about their personal financial information, but you're using enough education tools in that one-to-many event, which is not capped monthly, to talk through the key points and things to be looking out for.
It's a great idea.
I see what you're saying, we do everything to scale. Like, we still have a lot of sole traders who are a bit ambitious, they want to get there. So we developed the Lone Ranger Club, and we've only got about 50 members in it so far, but once a month we have a webinar where it's an interactive webinar, and they get to submit a survey beforehand to let us know what they need to know about tax zero. They all have to be on zero. And so I'm just sort of training them up to get used to the monthly, even though they're not prepared to pay for monthly, but we can do a lot of them at once.
I think the issue that Nicole raised is very, very real, very prevalent in the industry, and that you have an existing client base, and to try and move them to something while you may want to is hard. And I do think that potentially the start of that move is the group education sessions that Electra, I think Mars spoke of. And Nicole, we know you're a great facilitator and presenter, and those sessions don't need to be everything. They don't need to answer everything. They don't need to be everything to everyone. You can pick a small topic that could be 20 minutes long, and run it as a webinar that's recorded and then sent out to the client base. And then if they pick up on that, well, one, they may come to you asking for more and move into that monthly or quarterly or something. But it's also great marketing for you. And I know that a number of us were on the Outsourced Accountants Conference this morning, and they very much talked about the successful accountants and bookkeepers who kept it going through the thrashing that we went through during COVID-19. A lot of them put out mass group education because that was, physically, there was only so many hours in the day, and that's what you needed. to do. So whether it be webinar, whether it be a great email, something like that. Do you think that that would work for you, Nicole?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, you can always give it a go. If it doesn't work, well, then try something different. You don't have to commit yourself for the rest of your life to it. But I do like the sound of having recorded ones that you send out, because I'm not sure that necessarily all of our clients would want to be on a Zoom call together. You know, maybe they're going to accidentally say too much, or, you know, people might, you know, it might be uncomfortable in that. You know, sometimes with your bookkeeper, it's a bit like therapy. You definitely don't want an audience when you're speaking to your therapist. So maybe pre-recorded ones is a good starting point.
When we do it, they don't see each other. They're attending, but they're asking questions.
So, because I want to understand this as well, Lecture. So is it more of a Q&A session? You're not actually going through finance?
Well, we have a plan, but what we do is we survey them about, you know, 4 days before we put it on, and then we just design it based on, you know, the stats of what people asked about, topics like what's hot this month, budgeting, PAYG instalments, claiming motor vehicle expenses, recording apportionment in Xero. It's just sort of basic stuff. It's not, they're not our target clients, but we're just looking after the little ones to get them into the good monthly habits. And the deal is that they've got to have reconciled their Xero accounts before the end of the month. They've also got 4 free help calls a year to help them with their books. So it's just like a little package. So this lower value clients, we've kind of come up with that sort of solution to look after them, but to also to train them, to educate them, so that when their businesses grow, they do everything monthly. Yeah.
It's a really cool starting point, and I really like it. And I think breaking it down into, because I think it's always good to have a mix, because if you end up just doing monthly for everybody, you're going to end up in a position like Amar, where it's like, I'm going to need someone super senior, and it's challenging because you can't just easily outsource and replicate Amar.
That's got my other staff doing that. That's their project. So they're being trained in doing advisory, getting the confidence by doing that for the little clients. And
yeah, and I think that was really valuable, because that keeps them on board too, because like if you've got that progression in your business and you've got that compliance and you're getting them to like look at beyond compliance and start thinking a little bit more strategically. Like, I know that another challenge in many bookkeeping practices, particularly where it is just reconciliations and compliance work, turnover is massive, or they just open their own practice and do it themselves. So that's a massive challenge. But if you've got that in place, I think that actually kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. It's actually adds a number of benefits on a number of levels, Electra, where you are developing your own team to sort of clone yourself to be able to have those more strategic level conversations, but at the same time keeping those staff members on that journey and in your practice and developing with you. So I think that that's actually a really nice combination.
thank you. Yeah, it's experimental, but working as a sole practitioner, I think it'd be quite difficult. You'd have to make more of a decision of these are the clients and demographics I'm going to work with, as Amar has.
Yeah, exactly.
Scaled what we do.
Yeah, I'm conscious about, we kind of we're talking before about, with uncertainty and with everything, it's around like figuring out what you can control, figuring out goals. Now, like Nicole, for yourself, where you don't actually have these monthly meetings in place necessarily, a lot of business owners right now, like I know that you don't necessarily deal in hospitality, which is probably one of the hardest hit industries, but for any of your clients where you said that they are struggling, is there an opportunity potentially to start looking at, well, what is it they can control and what are some goals that they can set themselves that they can control, and you can check in on how they're doing every month, as opposed to it being, this is a new service. It's like, well, can we start focusing on hitting some goals and start building in a monthly catch up where you're looking at their goals, you're not looking at a service, but then being able to kind of iterate that into a service. I don't know. I'm just sort of piecing together what we're talking about here and sort of seeing if there's some threads that we can pull together.
I think Amar would be totally across that, being able to set goals for not set goals, but extract goals from the clients. He ran a goal session with us, didn't he? And it became quite terrifying because he had a book there and he was, what is your goal? And what really is your goal? And and publicly we all...
are you drinking enough water? And do you go to bed early enough? What time are you getting up?
We're all going here. And he, we all became publicly committed to our goals in kind of a small setting. And that has actually been quite effective, because every time you go and do something, you think, is Amar watching? Am I going to be able to report back? Yeah, he's watching. Have you done a goal setting like that with your clients, Amar? Or were you just practicing on us?
That's generally the first meeting. So when I engage a new client, it is, and they mostly don't, have you articulated your goals for your business? Because before we could set a budget, which we need to do early on, we've got to understand what the goals are. What does the business owner want to achieve? So we start with that first. So going through the goals, then we break that down into the budget and the forecast, so that we can actually say, okay, what do we need to do to achieve those goals? Do we need to revise those goals? Are these achievable? And then we track to that. So, and it just helps so that each month when we're meeting with the client, it's a case of saying, okay, we need to do this because, and just reminding them of their goals, but they've actually documented their business plan, so that the business plan becomes a living document. It's not just something you write and forget. It formulates all the metrics that we track in our monthly meetings.
Yeah, and I think that's super, super valuable. But as you mentioned, like for yourself, it's a lot easier because it's like, this is how I work, this is how I operate, and you've got that plan in place. From your experience, Amar, like it sounds like there's like all these goals is potentially quite overwhelming at times if you actually get into detailed level and setting business plans, and could be a lot. I may be wrong, but is there potentially something simpler? Like, because if I look at businesses are like any investment. Essentially, there's two things: you can either try and generate passive income or capital gain. Can you break it down to that level of simplicity, understand whether the business owner either wants to sell or to make passive, like to make income without them needing to work crazy hours to be able to achieve that? And if so, what does that look like?
But then breaking it, actually defining it clearly in terms of numbers, time frames. So make it a smart goal. But you don't have to have. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that we would go through every client has to have a business plan, but just get them to document their goals. So even if it's 4 or 5 goals that they want to achieve, just document those. We don't have to put together a 20-page business plan. Even if it's just on a piece of paper, just keep it handy, and then make sure that we use that then to formulate the budget, so that the reason why we're tracking against this budget is to achieve these goals. So we either change your goals, or we've got to change how we're currently running your business to achieve these goals. So I agree with you. Keep it simple. Like we don't need to overcomplicate it.
Yeah. Because I feel like if there's a goal in place, and then you could potentially, like, that comes back to this level of uncertainty. Like if there's a goal that you can pull back to what's this week or this month, what are we focusing on? It comes back to that level of control. And it's like, well, we know there's this bigger picture down here that we hopefully are going to get to. And then we can set we can review sort of what is in your control to help with that level of uncertainty. Kerry, welcome back. I'm interested to, we're talking about we've kind of gone down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I think it's an interesting one, just around monthly catch-ups and goal setting. Do you how do you set clients with goals? Do you goal set with clients, and what does that look like in terms of those?
I don't have time for that. I need to get help. I'd like to one day be at that point, but I deal with lots of little teeny businesses who are all little sole traders, and so like we do talk about plans, especially when so we do some tax planning and all the rest of it, but it might only be 10 minutes a year. That's all we need to talk about. Like, do you want to get a house one day? Oh, I'm thinking about buying a car, but okay, don't do that until you buy your house. Stuff like that. Just simple, little, basic people, living their lives, making a living. I don't have any empire builders. And the empire builders I do have tend to be very, very self-sufficient. They don't need my help, if that makes sense. They've got it sorted. They might run the odd thing past me, but yeah, so it's kind of done, but it's a very laissez-faire affair.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, it's really hard. We were actually talking before Electra was going through it, where it's really hard to try and do that overall strategic sort of sessions when you've got so many smaller clients, particularly because there's only one of you, and we kind of had this discussion. There's like easily created bottlenecks and things. But it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on like potentially like a once a month or once a quarter session where you can go through. Electra runs something where she runs through like a little bit of a session where she surveys clients saying, what do you need help with? And can we run like a little bit more of a strategic session? Is that something that, I don't know if you were on the call, like if you were able to chime in for that part, would that be something that'd be helpful or not really?
Yeah, I was maybe not. It's probably something I see, down the road, a long way down the road, but yeah, and I wasn't listening. I was on the phone trying to sort out somebody's loan application for them. They decided yesterday they want a house and they need their tax done tomorrow. But yeah, so I've got these bottlenecks, and so basically, yeah, I do kind of like quarterly businesses, especially when they're just okay, Carla. Where I've got like every quarter, I'm reviewing everybody's books quarterly, just to tell them, hey, you need this much tax to pay, you've got this much tax to pay, and oh yes, you're going very well, or no, you're not. So yeah, I suppose to an extent I am doing it, but it's not locked in and it's not planned, and it's, like I said, very, very, very casual.
Yeah, and I think that the hard part that Nicole raised as well is when it is that more casual piece, trying to get it to a rigid structure of we're going to catch up every single month and it's going to cost X and we're going to go through Y is going to be quite hard to shift. It's a lot easier when you've designed it from the ground up to be that way. So to be curious to understand what are the small steps that we can take. Like this was just one example that Electra shared that I thought was really valuable, but like those little small steps that you can do to sort of help, because the what if stuff, like you can go two routes. You can either say, well, let's just not plan and go with the flow and hope it goes for the best, or you can do the what if stuff. And I think both have their merits, because I think if you can be a little bit more laissez-faire, then something like this and the uncertainties are less likely to affect yourself. Like Carla, I know that you mentioned that like that approach of just being 1 + 1 = whatever allows you to kind of take on the uncertainties a lot more, as opposed to being like, no, 1 + 1 has to equal 2. It has to. Like I need to be able to go to Woolworths and buy toilet paper. And it's like when the grocery store doesn't have that, then it can cause spirals, because it's like, well, that's not how we're supposed to. That's not how we're supposed to run. So
covering that one happens in the chat area.
Yeah, I was going to say, I need to close the chat area because the chat area is clearly...
No, you need the chat area open.
Need to work on like focus. You can see me. I'm just like bouncing here, there, and everywhere.
That's where we all are. I think Electra has made an interesting point in that she said you end up giving away too much free advice if it's casual. They need to buy into a structure. And it's interesting because I'm, as everyone knows, I don't know if you know, Dylan, but I'm not a tax accountant. I fortunately got on the management accounting track because I failed tax. So I have a tax accountant, and while I do the tax advisory with him, the actual meeting is quite casual. It's not a structured meeting. It's a very informal, and it's just chat. There's no paper there. He's just asking lots of questions, etc., and pulling information out of me. So, but the actual meetings can take different formats depending on who the person is, and depending on the type of person. I guess the plumbers, etc., may be wanting a different meeting. They potentially don't want to sit at a desk and wear a shirt and tie, etc.
It's hard enough getting them to wipe the mud off their boots when they come in.
Yeah. Meeting them in their...
Yeah, and I kind of I run a very relaxed practice. I think my client base, whilst the idea of having packages and all the rest of it, I mean, I find it completely overwhelming having to sit down and think about it. I do okay. I don't think I'm giving too much of myself away, because sort of. I don't itemize my bill. They just get a bill at the end of the year and it's this much, and they go, oh, yep, you're worth it, and they pay it. They don't know what I have and haven't charged them for. So once again, that's part of being relaxed. And also a lot of them are quite intimidated by coming to the accountant. There's that, like I said, they're just little people, just with their little anxieties and things. So half of it, you end up being a counsellor more than anything. Like the numbers, yeah. So
in terms of micro, it doesn't actually mean they necessarily earn small amounts of money. So they're small structurally, but they can actually be earning quite significant amounts of money.
Yes, but not many of my clients do. And they don't want to, they don't have that drive that, so by all means, I'd be quite, on board with them if they do. I've got a couple that, are going gangbusters, but, the rest, they're all, just tell me what I owe and don't get in my face.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if, say, you came across a client, Kerry, and I'm sorry to pick on you, I'll pick on Nicole, but she's about to disappear. And like in my mind, you've got lots and lots of small fish. That's the way I describe them. If you came across one of these small fish and they had discovered something that was incredibly amazing, that you could see what they were doing. So maybe it's a way of advertising that was getting them a massive amount of business. You identify that. Would you tell your other client base that, because and I'm just sort of picking out a piece of the puzzle, would you disseminate that information to the rest of the client base?
Probably not. Because the other problem that I have is that out of my, I do a lot of individual returns, and there's a couple of hundred businesses, there's not a lot, but they all know each other. So if I start talking about, hey, have you thought about this? I'll go, oh, he's doing that. They've already sorted it out amongst themselves. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, so whilst I can see what you're saying, like, yep, honestly, you can't, it's all too incestuous,
Incestuous client base, goodness.
Can I just ask on that point, sorry, I've been driving and listening, but probably on a good point is like when you've got those clients that have got, like I've got a top 3 of clients, they've got a really good business and it just chugs along, but then you can see gaps in their business, like their social media and all that sort of stuff. How do you get them into engage in something that's, you know, out of their comfort zone? Maybe, Amar, you could say something, but I have 3 and I see really big, they have a really good business, really good turnover, and they could double or treble their turnover, but they refuse to engage in those gap areas in their business. How do you get them to engage?
I think you make it non-negotiable. So even if you say you're in a current, you've got a current package with them, which doesn't include that, the monthly meetings, say, do the monthly meeting without increasing your fee. Show them the value, show them why they need to look at these numbers, show them why they need to start tracking certain metrics and looking at these different opportunities. And then say, maybe after three months, did you find value in this? Did you want to continue? So just introduce them to it, because a lot of my clients, if I initially said, do you want to do package A with monthly meetings or package B without? They'll say package B without. So, and I think probably 70% of my clients would say that. They'd go package B without. Because they don't know. So if you just introduce it to them, even if you have to keep it within your existing package, show them the value through those monthly meetings, and then after 3 months say, did you find this valuable? Did you want us to continue?
Yeah, try that with them and see how we go. So yeah, they just got, you know, really good businesses, and just with that bit more poking along with social media engagement, I think they do, you know, they could easily double or triple their turnover. But yeah, it's trying to get them to engage in those, identify those gaps for them, and getting them to engage with it and actually, you know, set a goal to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just you run it. Just run it and say, hey, we're doing this. When are you free? Bless you, Carla. Okay. And just see how that goes. I do like how Carla's worded it as a pilot program. So that could be a great way to do it. So running a program, you won't have to pay anything. Yeah, go for it, Carla.
I was just going to say, we've done it a little bit, but probably going back to that thought around doing some more with our clients, and especially if you're sort of still feeling out what that might look like. If you haven't, you know, you're not going to nail your packages, like we all know that you don't get it always right the first time around. That if you sort of build it as a pilot program, you offer it as maybe a sort of complimentary service or for a month, or bring that some sort of value to the table for a short period of time till they can see that, and then bring them in fully. But you also get that opportunity to, your current clients are already your trusted clients, or clients that trust you because they're already clients of yours. So using them as and being quite honest, is that we're building out this package. We want you to sort of test it out and give us feedback, and we'd like to see what you think of it. And then that will put you in a better position, I think, to then deliver that to people that you don't already have that relationship with, because you've sort of ironed it all out. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea.
Yeah. Stephen, welcome. Sort of slipped in there in the back. So we're just talking through bringing clients on the journey away from just kind of being trying to get them to see the value in regular check-ins, get them to see the value in planning, get them to see the value in goal setting. Have you sort of got any tips on what you've been doing on that front? Is there anything that you'd like to chime in from your perspective?
No.
No.
No. Look, all my clients have been around for a long while, like I have, and they all ring me at the drop of a hat whenever they bloody want to, anyway. And we all talk about their VASs and their financials every 3 months, and Some of them we talk about them every month. So that's just a thing that's developed over far too many years doing this. And that's how I do business. So, you know, I mean, I look at all my clients, all the business clients' accounts. I look at them all at least once a month, have a look at a profit and loss once they've done the months. You know, I can tell in my thing when they're done for a month. I get little green symbols and things like that that tells me they're finished for the month, and I have a look at the profit and we talk about it. So, because I mean, all my clients most of my clients are on an annual retainer. So they're allowed to call me and pester me whenever they bloody well like, which was a disaster when JobKeeper started because that's all they ever did. But normally that's just how, so that's how I do business. And they just pay me quarterly. Some of them pay me the whole year up front because that's how they like to do it. So I'm not giving you authority to deduct. I'll just pay you 12 months up front. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how you get to that point. I mean, that was just a progression that happened over doing this since the late 80s. So I mean, if I was starting now, I'd know a lot more now, and I suppose that's why people go onto this sort of, you know, buy a package and that sort of thing, because it's so much better than when I first started out. But yeah, if I knew now back then, I would have been doing it from the start. But it's just one of those things, I suppose. How to get people onto it? Prove that you're worth it. I think that's why I've got clients who've been with me since the late 80s, you know, the early 90s, and the noughties, whatever you call them, and they stick around because they feel they get value, and because they can ring me up and say, "Hi, Stephen," and I recognise their name, or their name comes up on my phone. I recognise their voice. I mean, I recognise a lot of clients. I recognise their voice. You know, like, "Hi, how are you? Blah blah blah. What's, you know, how's Melissa? How's your wife? How are the kids? How'd they go in their HSC?" And
you also recognise their handwriting, Stephen?
Yeah, I do. And you know, we have sort of familiar greetings and emails, you know, "Hi, Stevie," with about 400 E's from one client and things like that, you know. But the reason they're happy is they can ring me up and say, "Can I do this? I want to buy this, or I want to do that." And I don't have to go say, "Well, hang on, I'll have a look." I can say no, or yes, or yes, and the best way to do it's this, or no, you can't buy it cash. The best way to do it's finance it because your cash flow is a bit nasty at the moment. And I can do that basically with all my big clients at the drop of a hat. So, and that's what they pay for. And I think you've got to, and so you got to prove you're worth what you're charging them, I think.
Can I ask Steve, it sounds like that the conversations and the meetings aren't overly structured and they're more, I think you're similar.
Oh, I have a structure, they don't.
Oh, okay.
When we have a meeting, I have things I want to cover and an order I want to cover them in. I'm talking more about ad hoc, you know, when they call me.
Those ad hoc ones, the added value, the ad hoc ones, are they structured or are they more casual?
They're more casual because they're usually calling me. So it's a matter of me finding out what they want. And then dealing with it in, you know, they are casual, but there's a structure. There's things going on in the back of my head.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you're similar to me in that people keep saying, "Oh, CRM, you need a CRM, you need a CRM." And I'm like, my memory remembers every intimate detail of every single conversation I've ever had with them.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're the same as well.
I do. Well, I've known them all, you know, as I said, I've been to weddings of clients. Now I'm going to weddings of clients' children. I mean, it's about time I retired, I think. So it's you develop, and you know, I haven't lost many. I very rarely lose. I usually lose clients because they get married and the other partner has got some whiz-bang accountant that they have to go and see, and they sort of, and the other partner's a bit more pushy than they are. But a lot of the time they come back in 3 or 4 years with horrible stories and whatnot. So, you know, every time we rang them, we got a bill for this much or that much, and you know, they didn't know who we were, and so I think there's a point where, I don't know, depends on the structure of your business. I mean, if I used to have a situation, I mean, you know, there's just me and Tonto now, because I blasted most of the business out the door with my staff last year and got rid of them all. Best thing I ever did. And I just kept the core basic clients, you know, so I don't have staff worries now, and, you know, and they're all happy building up their own little practice.
So, Stephen, if you started your business from scratch 40 years ago, would you have hired staff and grown the business like you have? Like, have you?
I don't know. I think
now because you're trying to slow down, or
no, I just got sick of staff. No, that was because I was slowing the business down, and also they'd been with me for a long time. You know, essentially there was the same group of people who'd been with me for a while, and I wanted to slow down and wasn't really interested in managing staff and all the bloody crap that goes with it. And thought, well, you've built up this part of the practice, you know, because they're your clients, you know them, whatever. How about I just give it to you? And that's what we did. So that was sort of my, so there we go. And in 3 years' time, if they've made lots and lots of money, then I'll get some. But we'll see what happens. I don't really care. I don't really care. It wasn't the intention to do it that way. It was more of my way of rewarding them for, in one case, sort of 15 years of really loyal service. So, and all the long service leave entitlements went with them. Oh, I'm terrible.
You don't know how to structure a company at all, mate. By the sounds of it. No wonder you're so valuable to your clients.
So look, I would do it. I don't know whether I would do staff again or not. Obviously, you get richer quicker if you've got staff, but it also has a lot of stress and strain, and there's all the things of managing it. And you get older quicker, and I was always a bugger. I would never let them work on weekends. It's like, well, if you can't do it if you can't do it 5 days a week, then obviously you're overworking. You've got too many clients or whatever. And so I wouldn't let them come in on the weekends. So I used to lock them out of the server after I think it was 7 o'clock on a Friday night. The server used to lock down and let anyone log into it. It's one of the advantages of a server, as against all the stuff in the cloud. You can't control when your staff log in on the cloud. So
this is the first time I've been on a call since joining, like in Australia, that I've had someone sell me a server from Australia.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, look, you know, it's obviously I can't, you know, obviously it's only the tax return stuff's all on the server, and that's all going into the cloud at the end of the year anyway. Evidently, MYOB's taking everything up into the cloud. And I've already talked to MYOB that sort of, you know, putting in lockouts, being able to control who your staff are and what times they can log in, because I think that's important. So anyway, that's me. But look, all the grief I've had in my years of doing this business have been through staff.
In what sense? What sort of grief, Stephen?
Things that blow up in your face, problems with clients, just general grief in running a business. Have all been born of the actions of staff. I might sound like I'm pushing my own barrow, but I've never had anything blow up in my face that I've done. So I've had things blow up in the face because people thought I did stuff. But so I don't know. It's sort of, it's a difficult one. Obviously, if you want to build up a big practice and it's something to sell on retirement and all that sort of thing, then staffing and all that stuff is an issue. So it just depends on your life goals, I suppose. And if you're going to have staff and if you're going to build up a big business, then you've got to really, really fight for that work-life balance. And I mean fight. You've got to fight really hard and be tough on yourself and on your staff to make sure that it's maintained. I mean, I've got, people, friends I studied with and people who used to work in the tax office and left at the same time as I did, and they've got no bloody life at all. Go and work for Price Waterhouse or someone like that, and it's like, want to have a beer on Friday night? Oh no, I've got to be in the office on Saturday morning or something, and it's like, so look, it depends on what you want out of life, I suppose.
True.
God, I didn't expect to rattle on so long. Sorry.
No, that was insightful. Thank you.
No, I think it was really interesting, and I think it comes back. I'm sure has all of his life goals laid out in a book and bullet pointed, and so we can refer back to that. But there was actually some interesting stuff in the chat too, that say Electra raised around like those calls and everything that you were mentioning, Stephen, that Electra put in place the monthly meeting so that there isn't those calls that just kind of come out of the blue. I'm interested to kind of talk through that a little bit, because there's always stuff that we like clients need answers to. Like, for example, with JobKeeper 2.0 like coming out, like they're going to have a lot of questions as the regulations get locked in and their business is going to be looking at. Now, this is going to open a can of worms. Do you give clients the option just to pick up the phone and call you to build that relationship piece? Or do you have the structured monthly meeting to be able to make sure that you are getting that work-life balance? Because if you're letting clients call you any time of the day, that can throw that work-life balance out.
Oh, they're not allowed. They very quickly learn not to if they ring me late at night or on a Saturday or a Sunday. So it's like, hello, how are you? What? It's Sunday. And then they get a few choice words. More than a few clients to F off. So they never call me on the weekends. And they don't call me late on a weekday either. So, I mean, that's just, you set boundaries. That's up to you.
We use, it depends on the business clients with us. Most of them will just there'll be someone in their office who might help them, but we're kind of a bit proactive with the JobKeeper. But we use Slack, so that with about 10 of our business clients who we do close work with, and that's been quite good, just for quick questions that don't interfere too much with our time, or they don't really pick up the phone and bother us too often. They tend to click on the Calendly link or communicate.
I might give a false impression. They don't ring me a lot. I mean, I ring them we talk monthly, but when they ring me, they know they can ring me, and it's usually because it's, I don't know, they decided to buy a car, or they've just written off a van and want to buy a new one. It's not that, it's that sort of weird stuff, not the annual, not the, they don't ring me to discuss their monthly results.
Yeah.
For something.
No.
Other than payroll, which is a different type of service, are there anything that is like critical, urgent, time-based that you wouldn't have foreseen was coming up, or you can wait, you could have asked in the meeting 2 weeks ago or in the future meeting in 2 weeks' time? It's like you get your haircut monthly. You don't go in for half a haircut. You don't go in for an emergency quarter haircut. You go in, you schedule an appointment and you plan for it and you go in, and it's and so you collate the questions, you collate the issues. Like, I don't know, are there emergency issues that they wouldn't have known about 2 weeks ago? Yes, of course, some things crop up, but other than payroll, which is separate.
Nothing
No.
we do is
There's
like
no emergency issues, although they think they are.
Planned.
Like
Yeah.
it's
I
not
mean, when
like
you're talking to
it's not
people
like we're
monthly, you
paramedics.
kind of tend to plan. So, yeah.
It's,
Okay.
it's when they ring you up on the 10th after you talk to them on the 1st, and they tell you, oh, I need all this information for the bank. And it's like, for that loan, what, are you that far down the track? And it's like, you only told me about it 7 days ago, and you said you were thinking about it, and now you want all the figures? It's like, yeah, they get it, but they always think it's urgent, but it never is. But that's the sort of issues you get when when they've obviously been thinking about borrowing $2 million for ages, and they don't mention it when you have a meeting, and then they ring you a week later and tell you that they need the financials. It's like, when did this pop into your head? Oh, so.
And part of that is training clients, isn't it? And giving clients boundaries and expectations and training them. And like I have, like, you save a document and you put your questions there. It's not, what's the question? Not. You're not a toddler. You don't need to ask me as soon as it's popped into your head. And sometimes it pops into their head, but it's just like a speculation. Oh, what if I did this? It's like, well, pull it all together, think about it, and then we'll answer it all. It's so frustrating when you do go to answer something, and then they're like, oh yeah, I figured that out. And it's like, well, that's great, but I've now spent time answering that for you. But the gold is happening in the chat areas.
I was going to say, is the chat live stream? Because if it isn't, that absolutely has to get live streamed.
People need to join to see the chat. God, it's just crazy, out of control.
But yeah, I think it's really curious, just around the whole client training piece and what you mentioned, Heather, just around that whole boundaries and planning. Like, I love, Electra, your point. What are you planning to do next month? What are the little thoughts that are going through your head? And give a space for that so that you can start having those discussions before, exactly like you said, Stephen, they're at the bank being like, where's the financials? Because I think that's just such a logistical nightmare. My biggest thing at the moment, I'm curious, are business owners still planning big things at the moment? Like, has the uncertainty stopped those plans? Have people kind of put on hold any of those?
All mine have. All mine have. I mean, apart from a few bought cars and things like that, but certainly big plans have all been put on hold.
We have a couple that expand, but most are still in the sort of COVID hiatus.
Yeah.
Who are doing okay, starting to pick up more online sales and are starting to think about how they can grow, bring in other product lines, and they're getting a bit. They're looking for opportunities in crisis and doing okay.
Yeah, I've had similar experience. I've had clients who have expanded and plan to expand quite considerably, and looking to expand into Melbourne and Brisbane, and growing their teams, buying new equipment. So there are some opportunities out there.
I'm seeing lots of renovations because as the businesses are closed and no one's there and no one's present, that it's an opportunity for them to maybe do a bit of capital works and get things sorted.
Yeah, can't get a tradie at the moment.
Tradies are doing all the business at the moment. Tradies and Bunnings. On a side note, I'm just going to go on a slight tangent here. I never thought of this as a COVID business model, but spas, like hot tubs, just went through the roof. My friend's a manager of a spa company, and I never thought in a million years when your job's on the line that you'd go and buy a spa, but apparently that was a thing.
Anything to do with homes, I think. I've got in businesses, interior designers, high-end interior designers, and all those rich people who are stuck at home
Online shopping,
in really beautiful houses are all getting bored with them. So, it's like, I want new curtains. And I mean, I've got interior designers that'll do curtains in a house and charge the client $750,000 for the curtains. So
I've had
when you do a whole house.
Clients in smart home automation, because they can't talk to anybody else, they want to start talking to their houses. So installing all these Google devices and start talking to their curtains, go up, down, TV, go. So they just talk to their house now. So they've been doing quite well.
Well, like Cabot and Co is a furniture shop in Sydney, Coco Republic. I mean, they're all booming because people are bored with their houses, and so they're spending money on them. And spas come into the same category. Something to do at home. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We've been here. Let's get a spa. Something else to sit in.
Cleaning products. I've spent a lot on cleaning products and cleaning devices. I think that's because I'm home and I'm just seeing how filthy this place is, actually. I bought a carpet cleaner, like carpet and a, because we can't, in Vic, you still can't have carpet, what are they, like cleaners come out. And so I thought I'd take that opportunity to buy a carpet cleaning machine to do the upholstery and stuff like that. I haven't used it yet.
Melinda Cox just posted in indoor plants, and Carla bought indoor plants as well. We're not sure whether the ones behind her
Yeah, I'm now a crazy plant lady, and I'm following a Facebook group called Crazy Indoor Plant People.
Yeah. And I think the like the uncertain times that sort of Dylan came on with at the start, there's so much uncertainty around how we've been impacted by a virus. The stock market seems to be unexplainable in that I can't find it, but I did hear on the radio this morning it's the highest it's been in 5 months, which makes no sense to me. And we've got some major world elections coming up, which again, I think are going to impact some people, some businesses, some industries quite significantly in how they go. And just the lead up to them will be quite tumultuous. And as we talk about uncertainty, and it's kind of bizarre what industries and like you can't quickly pirouette into being a spa business. I don't know. I don't think that. But there are sort of, recognizing what industries and potentially even just having that conversation, which I think a lot of us potentially have had conversations with clients about. Okay, if this is not working, is there some way we can move? Is there a silver lining here that we can actually talk about the business model, which can become part of that strategic meeting? Especially, I know Kerry said that her group are all incestuous and we're not going to give them any ideas, but if she saw some of them pivoting into one area, then maybe there's an opportunity to discuss and assist them and move them that way. But yeah, there's so much uncertainty, but there is great opportunity in the home building and the tradies. They seem to be doing crazy. Some hospitality businesses are doing really, really well.
Yeah, and I don't think you can pick it either. But I think one of the key sort of points on this is just around when we're saying about these clients going in and like renovating homes and all of those sort of things, they're just taking money out. Is there like a discussion as to, well, what if sort of this, like with the stock market being so high, what if it crashes and burns? Like, I don't like, that's just, but with the business owners, like when we are doing this, are you having those discussions, like Carl, with the clients that are leveraging maybe they're leveraging that whole new home builders grant where they get 25 grand for spending 300,000 or whatever it is, like if it's a large amount of money, is there a discussion around well, if your trade is impacted going forward, you're actually not going to be able to survive, or you're going to put yourself in a really, really sticky situation. Like, are those discussions happening? Because I think that's that uncertainty kind of handcuff that comes in, where it's like, well, there is a lot of what ifs, and because there is a lot of what ifs, if one of those becomes a what now, then we're going to be up a smelly creek without a paddle.
You mean shit creek?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what the rules are when it's like Facebook Live and stuff. I was like, just gonna get on here and have my CEO being like, Dylan, why are you swearing on? And it's like, well, it's Australia, but I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. I'm curious.
Streamed, is it?
Yeah, it is. It's live streamed and recorded. So yeah, I'm trying to keep it under wraps here. But I mean, I'm sure we could get down a deep dark path if we went that way. But yeah, just curious around that whole planning piece, because like if you're not doing that planning, and I know Carly, you mentioned that you're not necessarily doing that really structured planning with clients, and then you find out that they're doing these renos, like how does that? Do you have that discussion with them? What does that look like?
Yeah, no, quite frankly, there's loads more that we could be doing in this space. So I think it's just a matter of getting it done and getting something implemented. Like I said earlier, getting out of my own way to progress over perfection, and getting something in place to structure it for those clients that we don't meet regularly. Like our probably our larger or more valuable clients are the ones that we do meet with often. But it's the other guys that if we're not having those conversations with them often enough, then we're not really getting the insights as to what's happening in their business. So it's probably more so retargeting those guys with some of these services.
Yeah. And with that retargeting too, I know that you mentioned about a trial period, or have you tested that? Like sort of doing a bit like here's I forget the word you used, but there was a good word that you used for that.
Pilot
just
program.
Pilot program.
Yeah,
like,
so not with this particular service, not necessarily with that monthly meeting advisory side of things, but with other things we have. If people come to us and we can see that there's something that we think that they would get value out of, like for instance, we do managed accounts, but sometimes for whatever reason, I don't know why, but they go, oh no, but I'll do the payroll. I'm like, oh, okay, you do the payroll. We'll see how that goes for you. But if you like, we'll just do it for X amount of time, and then we'll see how that process works for you. And then, so we tend to sort of do it with other services, but we haven't with this particular one. But it is a good way of piloting out how it works for them. So it's around your process, so they can see, sometimes it's really overwhelming for clients. They think, well, I'm going to pay you to do this, but how much am I still going to have to do myself? And they don't really want extra things on their shoulders to be doing. So we'd take the approach of really keeping it simple and taking the stress off our clients. So they need to be able to feel that and see that, and that's something that's not tangible until you're actually doing it.
Yeah, I think it's 100% bang on. And like we've started to do the same just from a float perspective. And I think it's really, really valuable because people didn't know necessarily the value of looking at their cash necessarily until we ran it for a couple of months. And that allowed that kind of period, that pilot program in that period to come up. So I think that for any, like Kerry, I know that you were saying that a lot of your client base is just like not even in that space right now. But if you were looking to kind of do something more like that, rather than trying to bite off a big piece and just do it, like take it small and just run something a little bit more of a pilot program. Is that how you did it initially, Electra, or was it just straight off the bat? Did you do some sort of pilot program and just allow clients to see it, or how did that implementation piece work for you when you were starting to move towards monthly?
Well, we moved to monthly billing about a year and a half ago with Practice Ignition, and we tried last financial year to get some clients onto paying us monthly. but we didn't structure it as well. We didn't include monthly advisory in it and, you know, strategy and what we're doing now. So we just improved on it. We just loaded a lot more value in and increased the fees and just, you know, I'd done a bit of work and had some coaching with Sam Musgrave, and he helped me tighten up those proposals a bit. He made me confident to whack an extra 10K on, which yeah, and people started accepting. I was quite surprised. At first they were a bit shocked, but then they accepted, and that made us more confident. Once you get a few people accepting, you say, no, this is how we work, this is what you need, we've been your accountant for a while, and this is what you're asking from us, and it's what you want. And
yeah, and I think that's the key thing. It's just biting the bullet, doing it, because it's just that what if no one accepts this, and it's like that
scary, really
in the background. It's so scary, yeah. And I think
because
that's the
first
key
you
part.
don't accept and they say we're leaving. It's like, okay, but others started accepting, and then you just get the confidence from them. But we haven't I think we probably overdid it last year. I'm being a bit careful not to accept more than one client a month now, so that I can onboard them really carefully. That's where we've really gone wrong in the past. And so having like a 90-day onboarding program has been kind of the secret to the success. We're planning what we're going to do for the year ahead even. So yeah. So yeah, just doing things differently. You kind of learn. We're just, you know, when something doesn't work, you just try again, and, you know, you're not going to please everyone, and then you decide what you like doing and what you do well, and design your own proposals around that.
I think what you said is the key. Find what you do well and what you like.
Yeah.
And
do it the same way for everyone. Then you just sort of get into a comfy routine.
If you don't like it, or you don't like them, then it's just a chore, and it just makes life hard. I quite often had that conversation, used to, with new clients. You know, I don't think we're a strategic fit. They go, what do you mean? But if they were really, I just say, well, I don't like you. Oh, why? But I think you've got to have that conversation with people. You've got to be upfront and honest. If you think this person just grates your soul, then the last thing you want to do is have a long-term relationship with them.
And it's not worth fighting, you know. If people aren't prepared to pay for it, you know, there's no point trying to convince them. They're never going to value you anyway. So just focus on the positive. Yeah.
People who just grate your soul.
Well, they do. I mean, I got rid of you know, clients that were enormously profitable because I just couldn't do it. I could not be nice to them, and I could not bring myself to do the work that needed to be done for them because they were just horrendous, vile human beings.
If I think about them,
flesh bags, I call them. They're flesh bags. You know, there's nothing. There's no redeeming humanity in them at all. They're just a bag of flesh. And it's like, no, sorry, I don't want to deal with you.
Well, that was like one I got rid of last week. He's, in Electra's terms, he was a D-grade client. He just, every time he jumped on the phone, it was just hard work. And I just thought, you know what? They're just not worth it. If, you know, this guy, unfortunately, I took on because I liked his business concept, and he was a referral from the accountant, so I took him on, and I shouldn't have. It's the first and last time I'll do that. But, yeah, they just sap your soul, and they're not worth the hassle no matter how much they pay you.
Yeah, look, I completely agree. And sometimes your D-grade client is someone else's A-grade client.
Oh, yeah, there are inhuman flesh bag accountants out there that love them.
Yeah, no, they are. There are people out there who like dealing with difficult... I met a guy at a conference once, and he sat down at the table and he said to everyone, I want all your D-grade clients. Here's my card. Just pass them to me. I love those clients. And I was like, well, good on you. That's your strategy. He was like, I want all the paper-based, old school, difficult to deal with clients. And he just walked around and I was like, great. He was taking it and going with it. That's not what I would recommend to people, but if that's what you like and you enjoy that puzzle, that challenge.
I think you have to go home from work. It's not feeling positive when you go to work that's the test. It's still being positive at the end of a long day. If you can do that, then your client base is the right people. And some people just don't give a shit, so they can do that no matter what their client base is like. But I think it's important to be just as positive at the end of the day as you were at the beginning.
I only came in on the end of that, but you're talking about D-grade clients, whatever.
We were talking about soul grating clients.
Do you know what? You might resonate with this, Stephen, because you've been in business a long time, same as me, is that the D-grade client of today could be the A-grade client of tomorrow. They're not always shit. You know, they could have some stuff going on. And if you help them through that, they actually remember, you know, you have bought so much loyalty by, you know, so I see all these comments on the forum on Facebook about, you know, getting rid of, and obviously if they're abusive and all the rest of it, yeah, for sure, you know, get rid of them. But if they just need help and don't know how to ask for it, you know, yeah, I just kind of see it through. You know, I'll take a little bit, but there does come a point when you've got the idiots that, you know, just need to find someone else. But they are actually few and far between.
I'm not talking about unorganised clients or clients who need a bit of work to get them up to scale. I'm just talking about hideous people. You know, there are a lot of clients who are difficult to begin with, but they're nice people, and so you get them up to speed and you bring them online and you set out what your requirements are and how you like things being done. And if they come on board and they're nice people, it's fine. You get them organised, and that's not a badly organised client's not a D-grade client. I have D-grade clients. I just have people that are just unpleasant and I don't want to have anything to do with. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. You know, someone being disorganised is not going to rule them out because they're coming to me to get organised. But they've got to be willing and they've got to be nice.
That's right. If they're disorganised but don't blame you for it, they're okay. But if they're disorganised, Kerry said you know, she can organise them.
I think that's a lot of it. A lot of people just training people and getting them organised. You know,
just depends on their attitude. Yeah.
I mean, D-grade clients are you know, it's more about people, about them than their business or their skill. You know, it's sort of like there are just some people who are just soul graters. So I've always used that term. So I'm glad you all like it. People are just great against your soul, and there are people out there that do that. You don't want them in your life, even if it's your 9 to 5 life. You just don't want them in it.
So do you put that in your marketing materials? If you're a soul grader, don't knock on our door.
It's in my engagement letter.
You can't get rid of them with marketing material. So you just got to. It's to say I can quickly identify someone now who I don't want anything to do with. You know, within an hour conversation, you can just tell. It's just like, no, this is not going to work.
Well, that's good because you keep coming back here and I'm here most days. So obviously I'm not grading your soul, that's kind of relieving.
When I was in my early 20s, a friend went through cancer and I read every piece of material out there about trying to help and support her through it. And one of the things was to remove toxic people from your support group while you're going through the cancer. And it really stuck with me. And it's like, okay, I don't need to say something nasty to that person, but I just need to move away from them if I don't identify them personally as toxic or as a client as toxic, and to just in life in general. And it does surprise me when you look at people and you think you're a really nice, kind person. I've digressed. Why are you hanging out with this toxic person? And sometimes you can overhear conversations in restaurants. You're like, this person is just being horrible to you. Why are you letting this happen? But anyway, I digressed really far then. Toxicity.
Or when you get as old as me, you turn around and you say to the table behind you, "Why do you put up with him? He's a shithead." But because you don't care, you know. I always say to people, if you're never going to ever see anyone again in your life, then don't care about the impression you create. Just be honest. It's like people think, "Oh God, I couldn't say that. What would they think?" It's like, you're never going to meet him again. Who cares? Or, you know, so I'm a grumpy old bugger sometimes, but anyway. No,
unless it's Kerry's client base, and then if that's the case, then that's a problem, because then that client will tell another client, then it will all come back in a big circle. So that would be probably a situation.
Oh, no, I never talk to a client like that. But I don't have anyone I need to talk like that to. That's the secret. Anyway, I better go, folks. It's the witching hour. I'll turn in. I've got to be home. So
aren't you home, mate? Aren't you just sitting on your back?
No. That's the office. It's out the window of my office. No, not quite. No. I can see the water if I stand up in my office, but no. Bye, folks.
See you, Steve.
Well, it is getting late, and I think other people are looking to go. So thank you so much, Dylan, for joining us and leading this session. Now, I don't know, Melinda, you didn't say anything there. I don't know whether you wanted to jump in and say anything before we wrap up.
No, it's fine. I think I just left my mute button turned on by mistake. So no, you're right. Keep going.
Okay.
Sorry.
And so I really appreciate you coming along and leading this conversation, Dylan, and possibly learning lots about both farming and uncertainty and how we can both assist our own business but also assist our clients through these conversations. And I think it's all about, I think it's just a matter of constantly evolving in this area. Do you have any parting words to share with us, Dylan?
Put on the spot there. Thank you. No, thank you, everyone. I know that there's a couple of people that have now left, but this is an amazing session. And Heather, I think it's amazing that you've put this on. I might slide into another one at some point just to catch up, because I think it's really, really important. And I think when you've got uncertainty and when we are looking at that whole toxicity piece and surrounding yourself with really good people, this is such a good place to just surround yourself with good people that aren't so grating, and have an amazing chat panel that goes along with it. But yeah, no, thank you all for jumping on. I was actually really interested because I sort of said to Heather on the start of this, the link that people make between uncertainty and whatever it is that they do to get around that is a really curious one, and a can of worms that I've kind of been opening over the last sort of 3 months as we've gone through this. And it's really interesting that we kind of got to the same approach where it's like uncertainty for someone like Amar is plan, and literally plan for everything so that there's nothing left to be uncertain about. Or it's the opposite, and it's just like, don't be uncertain. And Carla, that's more like your approach, right? It's just like, don't be uncertain because it doesn't matter. It's 1 + 1 = window. So
I'm using that. That's going to be my opening line on my website now, is 1 + 1 = window. Look through it, and whatever will be, will be.
Your
exactly. Exactly. So on 1 + 1 = window, that is my parting words for this.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dylan.
So much.
Thanks, everyone.
And look after yourself. And Amanda's here tomorrow running the session. So cheerio.
Heather, have we just decided on a name for your plant? Did anyone? Because I think it should go out to vote.
What was it?
I think his name's Community, and then you can, because he's a community tree.
Communi. Okay, I will call him Communi. I will
It's
christen
my,
him Communi.